All right, man. We're going live right now, man. What's up, Coop? Happy Friday to you.
Happy Friday, brother. What's good?
Man, we got new music again, man. We got the LOX this time. The LOX drop, Living on Experience. And shit, I'm really digging it. You know what?
I,
I'm really impressed. I'll start there. Go ahead.
no, I was thoroughly impressed too. They have aged better than almost all of their hip hop contemporaries from their era.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at it, most of their contemporaries actually aren't even really rapping anymore. If you talk about like the East Coast guys, you know what I mean? Because when's the last time you heard something from like Cameron or Nori? Like
Well,
a
okay,
lot of
let's
their
be
guys.
clear. Who is their class? Coop, happy Friday to you. Who is their class? Exactly. Because technically, the LOX dropped in 98, right?
97.
97. That's right, right. Yeah.
97. Yeah,
97.
97.
Yeah,
Money
because
Power
X
Records
came in
97.
8. Right. But they were around during the Biggie era and everything else. So I guess their contemporaries would be 96 on, right?
Like, so that's like Pun, Cameron, Nori, um, Nature, Capone and Noriega. Yeah, those guys. As far as like your East Coast guys, you know.
Yeah, I mean, look, like you said, they have aged really well. And what I will say about the LOX and what I got from this album, and we're welcoming everybody into the group, man. Hope everybody heard that new LOX album. And we also gonna talk about that new Black Thought song that he dropped with Pusha T, Killer Mike, and we'll
Right.
talk about that Big Sean and Nipsey Hussle record. But yeah, as far as the LOX, man, what I think makes them very different is the fact that they stayed a group, right? We really didn't see a lot of groups stay together like that. We saw De La Soul stay together, and a lot of other groups' main parts kind of drifted away or they stopped making music. But what happened with the LOX was the fact that just based off of their individual skill set, we expected a lot from them as a group, and they were able to go solo and do their thing solo, do little features here and there. And I think when they were solo artists, they became better MCs, and when they came back together as the LOX, they just became a better group. And I think that's what we heard in this album. I think it's my favorite LOX album. And I know it just came out today, but I think they sound really good on this record.
I mean, first of all, it needs to be stated this is only their fourth project together. So it's not
Right.
like they've done like a ton of albums together. Uh, I agree with you in the fact that I believe this is their best project together. And that seems crazy to say that. It's like I was telling you, it's like something must be in the water from this pandemic. It's like the old dudes are coming back strong, like Nas with King Disease last week, and this week LOX with Living Off Experience. There's a couple things I want to highlight that really stood out to me. First of all, although I think Mobb Deep, who preceded them, and Griselda, who has come after them, both make better music and more consistent music. They're not necessarily better MCs than these three guys.
Well, that was what I was gonna ask you. I was gonna ask you, do you feel like the LOX actually have a classic album as a group? Because Money, Power, and Respect is what it is, right? No, yeah, I don't think so either. Money, Power, and
No.
Respect is what it is, and I think everybody understands that the Bad Boy Machine was making the LOX something that they really weren't at the time.
Correct.
And so We Are the Streets was like, I guess, for lack of a better term, that first real LOX album that we were going to get based on what we knew them from as mixtape LOX. But I still think it kind of missed the mark, too.
Where did it miss the mark for you? Because I still think up until this project was just released that it was their best piece of work.
No, it missed the mark in the sense we talk about classic work. I don't feel like
Right.
it reached that potential that everybody feels like the LOX could reach based on their individual skill set and their skill level.
No, I understand that, but there are some really great songs on We Are the Streets.
Oh
And that's
yeah,
what I was asking about today. I think their highs on We Are the Streets is better than the highs of this album, but it's not too much higher, and this album is more consistent. And I give the nod to consistency when you're creating a piece of work.
I will say this, man. Like Styles just sounds really good on this album, man. Jada does too. Jada's one of those MCs that just sounds good on anything. I feel like he never sounds out of place on anything. But and Chic Luch sounds good too. Like Chic Luch sounds like Chic Luch of 99, 2000, you know?
I actually think the tipping point of this album actually is Chic. Oftentimes, I think some of the track selection that they've done, like Chic is the fun guy and the party guy of the group,
Right.
and I've often felt like he's been kind of like out of place in the group at times, not because he's out of place, but because of the track selection. This album has enough blend of tracks for Chic too. And I'll tell you what, they've really grown as artists and they've gotten really smart. They did a few things with these albums, with this album, people need to notice. The first thing is like the records that Chic sounds best on, Chic starts off, and the same thing with Styles. The records that are built for Styles, Styles starts off, same thing with Chic. They've realized what you realize. Jada sounds good on anything. Jada's closing most of these tracks out, as he should be. So they've gotten really comfortable in their space, and it sounds good, Mike. Like it does. Like, and you can tell they were thinking about it. It's like, no. Styles need to spit on that one to start off. No, Chic right there. Kiss is closing out most of the songs. It's how it should be. I mean, it starts off. First 4 songs are breathtaking.
Yeah, it's hard. Like, and you know, and like you said, everybody's been inside, right? Like, you know, we got the whole quarantine, and you know, somewhat still, but it doesn't sound like they've been inside. Like, this sounds like an outside album. Like, this sounds like they've been in the club, and even the laid back stuff. The record with T-Pain. Let me go to some of the comments too. Edwin said that he asked if they dropped the new album. Yeah, it came out today. And Styles P is a monster. Yes, I agree. And Soul says that Prodigy is a beast. Prodigy is super underrated as an MC. Rest in peace, Prodigy.
R.I.P. Prodigy. You're not gonna find a bigger Prodigy fan than me. I always tell people this. Like, he's not a better lyricist necessarily than Kiss, but he's just as good as Styles lyrically, and he's more entertaining than Styles and Kiss. Like, his narrative is more chilling. His voice is more like, there's just something about Prodigy. But I said as a group, like, as in Havoc, Rhyme for Mobb Deep 2, and Chic, Styles, Kiss is better than Havoc and Prodigy. Prodigy's great. He's not great enough, like, to overtake, like, Kiss and Styles and Chic. Like, no. Like, and I love Pete.
Well, somebody asked me today, like, you know, why haven't Jada and Styles, since they have, like, to me, in my opinion, the best back and forth in the game, why haven't they went out there and put out a album or a mixtape with just them? But it's like, it's kind of weird when it's like you're in a trio and you split off enough.
Right.
And it's like, you can't really do that.
Together. They do enough stuff together without Chic. They can't do that. And I'm glad that they've been mindful of that and haven't done that. Yeah.
We have to applaud, and I've always applauded De La Soul for their longevity and their ability to stay as a team through thick and thin, and I'm sure they've been through their things that we probably won't even know about, but to never have broken up, right? And the LOX have stayed a unit. And in hip-hop and in the music industry in general, I think that it should be applauded that someone stays, or a group stays a unit, especially a talented group like them, especially a group where somebody like Jadakiss is pulled out a lot of the times and people call him top 5 or throw him in these lists, where Styles is just as nice, if we're going to be honest. And if we're going to be honest, Styles has a solo catalog that is just as good, if not better. So egos don't seem to take precedence with this group, which is a great thing.
Hold on, let's back up. Do you think Styles is as nice as Kiss?
I think Styles is just as nice as Kiss as an overall MC. What we were talking about earlier, we were talking about being able to put together songs. If you want to ask me who I trust to put together an album or a song, I'm rolling with Styles. And Avi says, don't forget Chic. Of course, Chic is the heart of the LOX.
I don't think Chic made a pretty dope album his first solo. I get what you're saying, but Styles' solo career, like catalog-wise, isn't that much different from Kiss's. Like, they're about on the same level. I would give Kiss the nod because he is the better lyricist and has the better voice. If we're talking about delivery, Yeah, but if we're talking about like the bars and the voice, it's like Kiss, and the catalog is comparable. I just, it's not like I got Styles far behind Kiss, but I don't think that he's necessarily better, has a
I
better
think for
catalog.
me, Styles
But
kind of
they're
touches.
comparable.
I think Styles kind of touches on a deeper level a lot of the times, and I feel like even with if we talk about Beanie Siegel and Jada, right? Like I feel like Siegel just hits a different vein, man. And that's no disrespect on anybody, but some MCs just do that. And you're right. Like if we talk about bar for bar, punchlines and all that, Jada is tough to, for anybody to compete with. But some people have that extra level or that extra it's something in there that you can't really quantify, you know? And
No, I
Styles
know
has
exactly
that.
what you're talking about, and it's funny because we're gonna talk about Black Thought
Mm-hmm.
single. Styles on Making of a Murderer. Like he has some bars on there where it's like, what do he say? I'm reading Carter G. Woodson when I'm in the woods, where the money's cut off in the barter goods. A lot of niggas cowards and ran out on fatherhood. Should we kill them and let them live? I don't fuck with no suckers. I never did.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel you when he gets like that, Kiss can't do that. You
And
ain't gonna
see,
hear
look, and
you're not gonna
someone in
hear
the
you're not
someone
gonna hear Kiss talking about no Carter G. Woodson and then talk about deadbeat dads like within a 4 bar stretch and like piece it together like
Andrea
necessary.
Q says Styles is their conscious rapper. I agree with that. Edwin
I
says,
wouldn't call him
yeah.
a conscience rapper. He is the conscience of the group.
Well, he made that album with Talib, and
That's
he was
dope.
able to make that project with Dave East. I mean, the
I
versatility of Styles is crazy.
I think he's like Scarface in the sense that I don't know if he's conscious as he is very introspective and
Right.
thoughtful. He got a lot of face in him. In a
I
good way.
think, in my opinion, and I think that, I'm a Ghostface fan, obviously. I feel like he is the Ghostface of the Locks. He keeps people balanced.
I can I can see some credence to what you're saying. Yeah.
He keeps people balanced. Like, I feel like Ghostface keeps the Wu Tang balanced. Like, if Ghost is involved in a project, well, at least in a certain period, Ghost was
Right.
going to balance out
Right.
everything.
Right. No. I get what you're saying when you say that. So I'm looking at some of the tracks on here, Mike. Like for the Locks album, this is their best album. I mean, we haven't even bought up the whole "Think of the Locks" track with Westside and Benny.
Okay, let's
The
look at the
Large
track list. I
Professor
got it
did.
up.
Huh?
Go ahead. I got the track list up. My bad. I was transitioning to that.
Yeah. No. You're fine. To "Think of the Locks" track with Westside and Benny, with Large Pro on the beat with the Nas sample. Like
Mm.
that track is crazy. The one right after it, My America might be like the seminal record of their career. Like that's like I don't know if they've put a song together with them three better than My America. Like it's so well put together. You can tell, it's like you said, you can tell how their solo careers, successes and failures have helped make them come back together and be great. This album's great. They sound great. I mean, it's better than Kiss's solo album, and I had Kiss's solo album like my fifth best project this year. I mean, it's already getting bumped down
Oh,
behind.
yeah. It actually made me forget about Kiss's solo project. I forgot all
That's what I
about
was.
that.
You want to know why, Mike? Because it's doing the same thing that Kiss's project is doing, except for it's giving you the street joints too, and it's 3 of them.
Well, we got some more
Like
comments here. Ari says Killer Priest's new album, Rocket to Nebula, in my opinion, is album of the year. Highly recommended. We will definitely check that out.
Hey, that's crazy. You want to know what? I was listening to Basic Instructions before leaving Earth last night, and it just popped up on my playlist. I've been down with Killer Priest for a long time. I'm actually about to check it out.
Talking to underrated MCs, he's definitely on that list. Robert Stewart says Styles P is the complete package when it comes to being an MC. And I agree with that.
Yeah.
Conscious on the street level. And yeah. But yes, it's interesting that you mentioned the Jadakiss album, and this one actually made me forget that even dropped this year. It's a
it's doing a lot of what, I mean, this album is doing a lot of what that album did, except for it's three of them. So you're getting those grown up, three different perspectives.
Right.
And it's like it just came in with the first four joints. Like those first four joints, it's almost like they're like, we're going to give you this hardcore classic LOX shit. And then we're going to get into our grown man groove. And they did it in transition well. And it's like for every record where it feels like they're doing something that's out of their vein that people love for them to do, which is like that hardcore East Coast street. Like they come back with the joint every time. Like, so it's like after the joint with Jeremiah, they come back with the story joint. I'm not even sure if that's a Primo track. It just sounds like Primo did the track because I haven't even seen the production credits yet. I just know they shouted out Large Pro, and that's Large Pro sampling Nas from Represent off Illmatic.
Right.
You know, we cut the doors off the LOX.
Well, we got right, of course. We got to check the credits, but you know, one thing that I did like about this album too, and we're talking about a group that's 20 plus years into their career. I know Chris Rock has always said that rappers kind of have this predictable type of career. So it's like you got your debut album, which is about your life. Your sophomore album is about what your life is like after the fame. And your third album is about, you know what I'm saying, just basically overcoming that sophomore slump or pulling those two items together. Everything out there is like reminiscing rap. And I didn't feel like this was reminiscing rap. I didn't feel like they were sitting there telling us what they've done in the past, what they mean to the game, or anything repetitive like that. It just felt fresh and new, honestly. And for them to be at this point in their career, that was impressive.
Well, that's part of them knowing who they are, too. Nas can get away with the nostalgic thing because that's something people want from him and are expecting from him. That's not what they're wanting or expecting from the LOX. So it's like they kind of stayed true to themselves in that sense.
You know what's actually a really gift for them at this point as a group? They don't have that quintessential classic album that they're chasing.
I guess.
You know what I'm saying? Like they don't have that album where people are gonna look at each album and be like, "Well, it's not this," you know. And that kind of clears your head a lot of the times, and you don't have to sit here and chase your past. And so they're able to just be them, and they constantly are working too. You could tell that the LOX as a group are constantly recording. I mean, I'll go to Styles P again. Right. Styles P sounds so good on here because we constantly hear him, and you know he's constantly out there putting out stuff. Same thing with Jada. And these guys are constantly working and constantly making music, so nothing sounds like they just woke up out of bed and are trying to get it back.
They stayed working.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's really impressive, man, overall. And I like the way it starts off. I love the T-Pain feature. Let me go back to the track list real quick. I love the song Miss You. By T-Pain. That was kind of unexpected how that actually came together.
I don't love it. Like when it came on, I'm like, what are they doing? Because it's starting off so great. And I was like a little worried. And then like the beat finally dropped and I was like, okay, that's a little bit better. like I started to smooth out. There are a couple of like rocky moments, like where you're like, I don't know, guys. And that's where Sheik actually comes in. Like Sheik on the record with Jeremiah and the one with T-Pain for me is kind of what gives that record the energy that it needs for it to be like just a dope record as opposed to like just another like attempt at, you know, doing something out your box.
I don't really feel like there was anything on there that felt like it was a force in today's time, right? I don't think anything felt like that for me. I think some things I didn't like at the tail end of the album, maybe because it was slightly too long. But there was nothing on there where I felt like they were trying to reach.
Let's talk about that right quick. That's me texting you, by the way, Mike.
No. I'm looking at that. I see it on my screen. No, that's cool. Our guest has moved to next Friday, and that's cool. We'll do that.
Yeah.
We got plenty to talk about.
Hold on. I mean, I'm just going to say right quick, like the next guest that we're bringing on is, I think we both think that artist is pretty special and they just happen to be in another hemisphere. Mm-hmm. So we're just, dealing with some scheduling conflicts, but we'll be bringing that artist next Friday for certain. I just got the word.
Okay,
I mean,
cool.
okay, so you don't like how it ends, but that's what I'm saying. Like tracks 8 through 14, what don't you like? Because Come Back, Think of the LOX, My America, Net Worth. I love all those records.
No, I don't
And
love
like
how it ends around. Well,
Dirty
I think
Dirty,
Dirty Dirty and
you don't like
Commitment.
baseball.
Hmm.
Okay, yeah, I think with both of those records, they stepped maybe a little bit too far out of their box, but the songs aren't whack. Like if this is them 10 years ago, I think these songs aren't any good at all.
Well, I mean, let me
But
ask the
Loyalty,
people in the room. Like, if have you heard the album? I got the track list up. Like, what are some of your favorite records from the album? I see Avi is saying, I personally love the freshman albums because they were at their most hungry, with the exception of Killer Priest. Are you talking about Wu Tang? Trust me, dude's on another level. Yeah, of course, Killer Priest is on another level. What were you about to say?
I agree with you to an extent because when I'm looking at this track listing,
Mm-hmm.
if you take Dirty Dirty and Commitment off, we could talk about if this is a classic album or album of the year.
I was thinking about that, man, and we did like I don't want to say what was it? It was veteran album of the year or something like that. And I don't know who got it last year. I think it was 2018 where Too Short got it. Like people who were like 20 plus years in their career and
Hold
dropping
on,
like huh?
you did a veteran album of the year.
I think it's definitely veteran album of the year. It's a different thing. It's not a diss on any level. It's just
That's very disrespectful.
It's not. You think that's disrespectful?
You know what? I need to start following according to hip hop more closely.
You think that's disrespectful? No.
I
Man.
mean, so if I were to do my top 5 albums of the year right now, I would have the Nas album and the LOX album in there.
I think so, definitely.
That's what I mean. So right now my top 5 would probably be Pray for Paris, Alfredo, King's Disease, Fly God 2, and this project. And you want to know what else? I want to say something else right quick too. Gunna's project has staying power. I would probably bump it up above Kiss's project and Baby's project now looking at it, just because it's still riding so well. So I put Gunna right outside the top 5 for the Wanna album. Those beats are hard.
Let me ask you this, man, since we're talking about King's Disease. What do you think about the notion that the Rolling Stone magazine gave this album 2.5 stars out of 5, and the writer Danny Schwartz said that it is the most woman-hating album of the year. Basically, the title said Nas's King's Disease gets derailed by petty misogyny. What do you think of that critique when it comes to King's Disease?
There's so much to unpack with that. So I'm going to start off by saying that I haven't fucked with Rolling Stone since high school, and that was like the late 90s. And this is why I find them to be like totally like uninformed on our culture. They don't know what they're talking about as far as our music is concerned. They don't know what they're doing as far as our music is concerned. Anybody that looks at them as a viable entity or a resource about our music is fooling themselves and also selling themselves short on getting ingratiated with this culture and all the beautiful things about it. As far as the writer, I'm glad you're calling him out because there's definitely nothing misogynistic about this album. Overall, in context, I mean, you and I have had the discussion about how I feel about the word bitch being used. Like 27 Summers is coming on and he's going, bitch. Is he talking about a female or is that creative license? So it's like I don't hear a lot of degrading of women in terms of calling women bitches, hoes, prostitutes, things of that nature. That's not occurring. He's actually saying things like black women are the backbone on this album. He's giving references. And he's even given references like, Mike, I told you, part of the reason why I love the Firm track so much, Full Circle, is because, I mean, quite frankly, Nas and AZ and Mega have had, They've had reputations for being misogynistic in their personal lives. And so hearing them grow up and speak in a more reflective manner and talk about the childish things that they've done and talk about the mistakes, it's showing an introspection and a reflection that a lot of us as black men, when we get older, don't adopt and don't share. This guy's totally off base. We need to put him on blast, keep him on blast. The fact that he gave this album 2.5 stars on top of that, like, that's just disrespectful to Nas. I mean, how about this? Like, Nostradamus is a 2.5 star album, and this Nas' only 2.5 star album.
Yeah.
Right? Not like Nas on his worst day is gonna make a 3-star album. That's what you are when you're great. Like, your worst is 3 stars.
This wasn't even a situation where I feel like he was getting measured up against some of his great work. I think this is.
I don't even.
This was isolated. Yeah, this was isolated, and then on top of that, well, first of all, it's one thing, you got freelance writers out there. People do their thing. They have their own creative license, but for the fact that Rolling Stone as a publication allowed this to be posted on their platform, their website. I don't know if they're going to go to print with it, however they do it, but their social media with the start, because it started off basically, he said, with Nas's first album in the past 8 years, he missed the mark with petty misogyny. Well, Nasir came out in 2018. Already, you're way off base.
Lost Tapes 2, 2017.
That's not new stuff, but Nasir is a new album. I mean, I could see how somebody could say Lost Tapes 2 was like stuff that was carried over, whatever. But Nas dropped the album in 2018. And for a major publication to basically say he hasn't dropped an album in 8 years, and they didn't check that at the door, they already have disqualified themselves from the conversation. Because like you said, sounds like they don't really know what's going on.
Mike, if your name's not Jay-Z, and if you're not tied to Interscope, Rolling Stone doesn't even really know who you are as a rap artist. You got to be 50 Dre, M, Snoop, or you got to be Dead, Pac, Big, or you got to be Jay.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's their extent of hip hop.
Yeah, and they don't know anything. I mean, like, I think when I really like Stop, they did like the 100 greatest rap albums ever one time. And it's like, when I looked at their top 10, it's like, I'm not even certain if you guys like.
I think it was like, was it the 100 greatest rap songs or something? I remember that.
How about this? I just remember it was like, it might have been the greatest 100 albums, the last one. It was something that they did, but it's like, it was where they placed the Chronic and Enter the Wu-Tang and Illmatic. It's like when they started placing those records in the context of like, I'm like, I don't know what other music y'all were listening to like in the 90s, but like there's not 35 albums better than Illmatic in the 90s, period.
No, you know what? It kind of comes across that they have something against Nas. Like, because I remember when they did that 4 cover, how do you call it? A quadruple cover or whatever. And it was like Kings of Hip Hop. And the covers were Biggie, Tupac, Jay-Z, and Eminem. And it was almost like, huh? Oh, we got another comment here. It said, remember Nas rapped in the golden age of hip-hop, and when rap was what we call nowadays conservative, pro-gun, anti-gay, women on a lower level than men. Women really was not on the same level as men back in the 90s. In the 90s, there was no such thing as politically correct. Nas album dope, 5 out of 5. I don't know. 5 out of 5. I do think that we're living in way more politically correct times, and I do know that I don't want YouTube or Facebook to flag our video or anything, but the F word as it concerns to the homosexual community was just flown all over the place in hip hop back in the day, and you can't say that now. So I mean, yeah, things have changed in that way, but I think that's just more of a social thing, and I don't know. I feel like women had more of a place in hip hop in the 90s than they actually do now.
I feel that way too. Mike, Foxy Brown has been on my mind so much. I'm thinking about all the great MCs Foxy has rapped with and like who she's faded on verses. Like she's the one keeping it gangsta on the Full Circle track. She's the one coming hard on there. Like the guys are all softened up on the track. She's the one coming gully.
Talking about Ether and La Familia and stuff.
Yeah.
The
She's the one talking crazy. My 3 guys with me, so ladies, keep it a buck. Like, don't get $1.50.
Right. I mean, I think that too, man. Like, I feel like we discussed this earlier. I think that people from a certain background and community aren't able to really identify with Nas in the way that Black culture does, and I think that's a real thing. I think just like how a lot of people in Black culture don't identify with Eminem in the way that, white culture does, it's the same thing with people like Nas and Pac. And so if they aren't on some lyrical miracle individual stuff, they feel like their rhymes are basic. Because we've heard people say that Pac is overrated. I disagree with that on many levels because it's more about...
Like who says that?
Well, people who don't understand what he's talking about say that. People who look at his lyrical approach for face value say that. They feel like what he's saying just on a technical level isn't complicated. So they feel like him being held so high is overrated, but it's not about what he said or how many syllables he used to say it. It's not about how he said it, it's what he said.
Shakespeare's writing seems complicated to us because of the style that it was written in. But for the time, it was not complex or complicated or difficult to decipher Shakespeare's writing.
Right.
And that was part of the brilliance in it.
I feel like
the relatability and the explanation of the conditions of what was going on culturally for them.
I feel like, right. And I feel like when you talk about Pac, he said more with less words than anybody I can think of. I think Scarface is there too.
That's why I'm bringing up Shakespeare, Mike, because Shakespeare had a way with his prose of saying things in a brief format that convey a fuller message. Pac has Shakespeare-like gifts. So anybody calling him underrated is like anybody calling him overrated isn't even familiar with the English language and poetry, grammar, prose, form, different styles of
it's
prose.
Interesting you say that, and I'm sure you know this as a Pac fan. He studied Shakespeare.
Went to an art school.
Yeah, he studied Shakespeare, and he looked up to writers like that.
And so you can tell. Yeah.
And writers like Marvin Gaye. But I think that, long story short, I think when publications allow people of a certain generation who aren't able to identify with certain artists or certain social norms to write these type of reviews and put it on their publication, they're the ones that lose credibility. Whoever wrote this, that gentleman, come and go. I don't know if he's going to continue as being a writer in his journalistic career if he ends up doing something else. But Rolling Stone's always going to be Rolling Stone, and people will always remember that this article came from them.
Right. So this is what I mean. Like, so this Danny Schwartz guy, what gives him the right to talk this way about one of our icons? Like, Nas is one of our walking, living icons and treasures as an MC, and we don't have a lot of them where we can honestly say that is a walking icon in our game. Every time they walk around, choose to speak, take it to a venture. Yeah. There's not a lot of guys like that, and he's bigger than a lot of the guys that have helped him get to his way. Like, you and I know who Primo is, but way more people know who Nas is, know who Primo is, or Pete Rock, or Large Professor for that man. I mean, what gives Danny Schwartz the right to talk about Nas this way? It's like he's not even verified in our culture at all, Mike. And that's where the problems start coming in. It's like, what gives Rolling Stone the right to hire this guy and to tell this guy to write the Nas review Because all bullshit aside, Mike, about stuff like this is getting to the point. I don't know if Rolling Stone's paying attention to what's going on, but we're tired of people appropriating our culture. And to quote Doc Rivers, not loving us back in this country. We're big enough. They need to be asking you or me to freelance write that review and paying us, and not over Danny Schwartz or whatever. Because what's going to happen is we're going to get up and we're going to talk about how inept Rolling Stone is at covering our culture and how inept this writer, Mr. Schwartz, is at dissecting music, just listening in general and understanding there's not any real misogyny to be found on this album, which I will tell you for a Nas album is strange. On the first album on Life is Good, Nas admits to cheating on his wife. He's not even the same guy from that project.
Right.
So if he wanted to say that in past tense, it's like, oh yeah, like the guy who made Uchi Wally and You Owe Me, it's like, yeah, but like not this guy.
And I hate to say it like this, but that's hip hop. And if you have a problem with hip hop being misogynistic, that's a whole nother conversation. But if we're talking about this individual project and this individual person, I think that is someone just pulling something out their ass and either trying to get clickbait or trying to attack a legend. That's what it comes across as.
Right. Hey, Mike, and you make a very valid assertion. It's not even just valid, it's brilliant. Have they ever called Jay out on his misogyny, or Dre, or Snoop? Because they're bigger culprits than Nas could ever hope to be. Ever. This is what I mean. Like, Nas is one of our uplifting and powerful and pro-Black voices, and always has been. I mean, he has some missteps, and there's his personal life and stuff. But outside of but as far as like on record, Mike, he's one of our more like uplifting figures, and you can see how he's gotten older, how he's tried to project that more.
Mm-hmm. Listen,
Danny Schwartz and Rolling Stone, they don't know shit.
The thing is, man, like I said, anybody who's an editor in chief, right? The way it works, for the people who don't know out there, is, someone who is your, journalist, freelance writer, or whatever, they write an article, the publication reads that article and tells them, like, yo, I know you got creative license and all, but this right here is not going to work. We're not going to put this, and this out. They cleared all that shit, all the way down to the fact that they made it seem like Life is Good was Nas's last album. It's all kind of inaccuracies. There was another inaccuracy in there too, where he tried to, I'll pull it up on the page, but he tried to actually say that something in those bars where Nas was talking about the tunnel was reminiscent, or he was reflecting on the opening scene of Belly, which was all wrong. It was like, it's crazy. The fact that they cleared this, like, come on, bruh. Like, that's the part that gets me. I don't really fault the writer that much. The writer, he's probably happy to just be on whatever, but the fact that it got past Rolling Stone's upper staff to actually get published, because if he said something about a certain group of people that they do business with, that shit wouldn't have flew. Let's be real.
Okay, so Mike, I'm going to get biblical, but it's going to be brief and only because it's applicable.
Mm-hmm.
The Book of Kings in the Bible, the Book of Kings is about good kings and bad kings. Just because you're a king doesn't mean that you're good. And so here's why I don't fuck with Rolling Stone. I've been writing, consulting, I've just been working with you on According to Hip Hop for 5 years now. There hasn't been one idea I've had, one article that I have written that hasn't crossed you first before it's gone through. They're not good leaders or effective business managers either. Like, they suck on all levels when it comes to handling our music.
Either that or they do it on purpose.
No, that means they still suck.
Right.
You understand, like, we are where we are. When I started writing for you 5 years ago, Mike, we didn't have, we had about a fifth of the followers that we have now, and you still would come back and make comments about every last thing that I wrote. And I always respected that, because that meant that you had integrity about the product that you were putting out, which is what made me want to work for According to Hip Hop. So, I just want to say that,
Well, I appreciate that, man. You know what I'm saying? It's all about, it's about just doing the culture right,
good
man. I
kings.
mean, because
I'm
we're
just
all
saying,
here for hip hop,
all
you
I'm
know?
saying is you can look at the work, you can look at the people on the totem pole, good kings and bad kings.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Peace, King.
John Lockridge says they don't care. And Avi says, you can't talk about women like you did back in the 90s. Times have changed. Nas rap the way he used to. If he did different, it wouldn't be authentic. I don't really feel like he was misogynist on this album. Maybe I missed something. It didn't even feel like 90s misogyny. I didn't really feel that.
He really hasn't had much misogyny going on since his mother's passing.
Yeah.
If it changed after, I mean, pretty much if you listen to everything from God's Song on, you can tell that he's been affected by his mother's passing, and not just on a musical level, like on a life level.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the misogyny stopped on God's Son. When is God's Son?
That was 2002.
02, Mike. That's 18 years ago. That's what I'm saying. Like, they're talking about this guy like Danny Schwartz, right?
When we talk about hip hop being a culture,
I want him to go live. I want him to catch all the smoke behind this.
Oh yeah. We would love to. I mean, I know you did the review for King's Disease for According to Hip Hop, so I would love to get you and that other writer in a debate so he could actually state.
He don't want to do it with me, Mike. Mike, I'm not even. You know what? No. Tonight's the night. I'm gonna talk my shit, Mike. Most guys that come from where we from and that have been active in the culture don't want to do that with me. Like, he don't stand a chance in hell. Like, most of these niggas out here who know me, like like Mike, you know me. Like, these dudes that know this shit don't be wanting to argue with me. You gonna put me in front of him? Like, good luck to him.
I mean, look, the fact that he didn't know that Nasir dropped or didn't acknowledge the fact that Nasir dropped just lets you know he's not paying attention. So
do you know how negligent that is, Mike? Because Kanye produced that album. Like, when Kanye coughs, everybody in the white world jumps.
Yeah. They didn't even acknowledge Nasir as an actual album. That's crazy, man. That's crazy to me. It wasn't trash like that. Are we serious?
So that goes back to what my friend Holland was telling me. I have a friend who's a DJ, and he happens to be white. And he's as verifiable a hip-hop mind as you will find, Mike. Mm-hmm. As a matter of fact, we were having a daylight conversation about, okay, 3 Feet High and Rising, Stakes is High, or Balloon Mind State. He's like you. He really feels like Balloon Mind State might be the best of the three, even though it's got the least amount of attention. And I was telling him, I'm like, I'm telling him the guy who owns According to Hip Hop feels the same way that you do. But I mean, Stakes is High is my favorite. 3 Feet High and Rising is my big cousin's favorite. You know what I'm saying? And we're just talking about all these things. But he was explaining to me the whole Nas thing from the perspective. I'm like, because he's a Rakim fan. He loves Rakim and KRS-One. And most people who are Rakim and KRS-One fans are Nas fans because it's like a lyrical family tree, so to speak.
Yeah.
And he told me, he was like, well, as a white kid growing up in the suburbs, it was hit or miss with Nas because of the pro-blackness and the mafioso. A lot of the stuff didn't reach me and didn't resonate. So it was easier for him to gravitate to Andre, Black Thought, Mos Def, KRS, Rakim because of the Escobar thing and all of that. So it exposed me to the fact that Nas is probably the least known of all our rap icons in the white community.
You think so? I think he's the least relatable because it's funny you say that. I was talking to a gentleman.
Pac is actually the least relatable, but
I think Pac. Yeah, I think Pac is different because unfortunately he passed away, and his legend is different because of a lot of those things. But if he were still here, he would probably be viewed as an Ice Cube to them, whereas the message is over. It's something that's not relatable. But I think that his legend is relatable, if that makes any sense. He has a Jimi Hendrix type of legend when it comes to hip-hop as a culture. And it's more, they really highlight the less conscious Pac. And the fact that he had that side, I think makes him somewhat relatable as a rebel in that way.
That's not pop. Okay,
Yeah,
so I always tell people this whole. So Rolling Stone has a part to play in that. That's why I don't fuck with them.
yeah, yeah,
They're part of the perpetrators of that whole death row. Tupac being the only Tupac. The real Tupac is the Me Against the World Tupac. Like the guy you hear on Me Against the World, that's the real Tupac. I'm not saying like All Eyes on Me is his best album, but if you're talking about who he is, So Many Tears, Dear Mama, Temptations, like those that's Pac.
yeah.
That's Pac. But Rolling Stone didn't get down with that Pac. They got down with Death Row Pac.
Death Row Pac was a machine, and I think that when he was on, with Me Against the World and Strictly for My Niggas, he was another artist that was on Interscope, and I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, I remember, but I feel like Dear Mama took him to a whole nother level. Well, you know what? Him getting locked up, getting shot, all that. Unfortunately in media, especially back then, when you talk about print media, those things are things that they reported about, and those things took people to a different echelon. But he had the music to back it, right? And I feel like Dear Mama, in the midst of all those things, and the fact that they couldn't shoot the video because he was locked up. Well, they shot the video. They didn't shoot it with him in it because he was locked up. It added to that. And they built up that anticipation for what you call Death Row Pop, for All Eyes on Me, and it's like, I'm back type thing, right? And so
it's his best album. Don't get it twisted. Don't get it twisted. All Eyes on Me Volume 1 is his best piece of work, and it's the best he ever sounded lyrically.
I agree. So and I think that it was, in my opinion, his best produced album, more importantly, because
the production's not even close. That's by far his best produced album.
Might not even be his best written album. I think Me Against the World might be his best written album, but I do think that overall,
it's hard to top the writing on that album. It's hard to top the writing on that album. That's like Edgar Allan Poe meets Shakespeare.
Avi says, remember Tupac was not just a music artist, he was also an amazing actor, yes, and he was multi-talented. Shout out to BJ, man. Got BJ in the building. He said, it's a sissification of America. Everyone is offended too easily. I sense misogyny in the Nas King's Disease album.
He's right. I'm tired of all this soft shit. Right. Like, men's supposed to be men still, too. It's like, we're not always right, but men are still supposed to have space to, like, be men.
Well, you know what? That's what a lot of people said they loved about that Michael Jordan documentary, Last Dance, because it showed that Michael Jordan was, like, a hardcore dude, and he was a man's man.
Yeah.
Unapologetically.
Yeah. Like that's what I'm saying. It's like, I'm so tired of living in this world where it's like we have to apologize for who we are as men too. It's like I shouldn't have to apologize for who I am as a man for the woman to be uplifted at the same time. It's like it can be both of those things simultaneously.
That's real, man. I totally agree.
Like, I mean, yeah. I mean, I was it's about to get personal. I was about to speak to some things right quick, but but there's just ways to go about it. Like it's like Anthony Hamilton is from the west side of Charlotte, which is where my family is from. When I met Anthony Hamilton face to face the first time, like him and my big cousin who put me on, they went to school together.
Okay.
Like he remembered my cousin. I pulled up on him, and I'll never forget. He told me, it's like there's room for everybody on the stage, and it's like that's a music thing, that's a life thing, that's a growth thing. Right. There's room for all of us.
That's real.
Yeah.
And you got to understand and respect everyone's position and where they're coming from, what their background is, what made them what they are. As long as everybody's respectful in that sense, you can't sit here and say everything needs to be one way. But I think, not to get on no long tangent, I think that's what cancel culture creates. I think that's what do they call it? I don't want to say think tanks. It's where basically everybody is saying the same thing, right? Because if you're not in line with what everyone is saying, then you're casted out. And I think that's what that creates.
So Danny Schwartz is trying to cancel Nas, so we just gonna cancel Danny, punk ass.
I mean, he wasn't even here to be canceled in the first place. We could cancel, the publication because they allowed that bullshit to be posted on their platform.
I would love to be responsible for helping to take them down. They're awful.
Well, the people are doing it. I think we posted that the other night. Basically, what they put out there in their review, and I've seen people have gone to Rolling Stone and gone to Danny Schwartz's page and have wreaked havoc on them. John Lockridge says negative. Me Against the World was the first time they recognized Pac. Okay, I mean, I Get Around was a hit.
That's not true. I'm about to say I Get Around and Keep Your Head Up is on Strictly for My Niggas. That's 93.
Yeah.
And people forget, like, Strictly for My Niggas went multi-platinum, if I'm not mistaken. It sold a couple million records.
Do you feel like Pac's acting career helped a lot of those records in ways that they might not have got acknowledged if he wasn't in Juice and if he wasn't in like Above the Rim or Poetic Justice at the time?
It's funny, when you said that, I was thinking there are 3 movies that definitely helped his rap career, and you just named them.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what I'm saying. He was a cultural icon, not just a musical icon. If hip hop had a logo, there you go. Because he can act, he can rap. He comes from a family of Black Panthers. Like who would you else? He's a multi-platinum rapper.
I don't know how we got on.
I don't know how we got on.
I don't know how our LOX review turned into.
I'm gonna talk about Pac all night if you do that. Like we can do that all night about Pac. I'll talk about Pac all night.
What I will say though,
like Nas is my GOAT, but I love Pac more than I love anybody that ever existed in hip hop. Like, matter of fact, he's the only guy that I love.
Did you see that biopic, the All Eyes on Me biopic?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, I'm gonna get to that in 1 second. Richardo says, "I know I gave
the actual movie that got released."
Yeah, the one that got released.
So one of the actors in the movie is actually a friend of mine who I know, who had a scene in the movie, and actually had a real role in the movie. Kanye.
Ricardo says, I know I can give kids in that day some conscious and awareness of greatness. My kids sing that shit like it just dropped this summer. I guess they're talking about the 90s. Remember before he was in Digital Underground. Yeah. All right. I didn't see the Pac documentary, or not documentary, the biopic in the theaters. I saw it on TV the other day and I just ended up watching it. But the way I felt about doing a biopic on Pac, I just feel like his life deserves more of a miniseries than 2 hours. I just don't see how you could put, like you said, all of that into 2 hours and 15 minutes or whatever you're putting it into. I just don't see how you can do that.
No, I totally feel you. But the money. I don't know what else to say. The money.
Well, I mean, money compromises the art, right? And I feel like, with someone, I was talking to my girl about this today. We haven't seen a Marvin Gaye biopic because his family probably won't allow it. Jimi Hendrix's family has vetoed the biopic. We know how it ends.
Huh? We know how the movie ends. Yeah. Right? You think their family wants to put how the movie ends up on the screen?
Exactly.
Right. Right.
Not to mention the in-betweens with his father being a cross-dresser and all that stuff. They probably don't want all that. Anyway, so we haven't seen that. Jimi Hendrix's family keeps vetoing biopics. And we haven't seen a Rick James biopic. And I'm going to be honest. I want to see a Rick James biopic more than any biopic ever. But certain people we just can't put into 2 hours. Like, how can you really put those guys' careers? You could put Jimmy's career in 2 hours, probably. But I don't see how you could put Marvin or Rick James's career in 2 hours. I just don't see it. You need a miniseries. And I feel like Pac is in that category.
Rick James can't be on a miniseries because you can't put the shit that Rick James was doing on regular TV. That's
He needs a Netflix series or something, man.
Yeah. Rick James is for Netflix, and people have to understand this. There were stories about Rick James that were epic and legendary long before Dave Chappelle came along.
Of course, yeah.
Like it was epic before, Mike.
But that's why
Like
Dave Chappelle even did
Like, do
it.
you remember when he got locked up for locking the chick up in the basement and had her handcuffed for like 3-4 days?
Yeah, but that's why Dave Chappelle did it. That's why Dave Chappelle did it because
Mike, that's some good cocaine. Like you fucking put somebody in a basement for like.
Yeah, man, that dude was crazy, man.
But
he was a genius.
That was later when he wasn't as wild. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Right. Cocaine's a hell of a drug. But yeah, if I could see a biopic from anybody, I'm rolling with Rick James. And I don't know how this is a segue, but did you hear that Black Thought record today featuring Pusha T and Killer Mike to drop? And Swiss Beats is in there too.
Killer Mike, I mean, those were all three of my personal favorite lyricists. So, I was all over that. That was actually the first thing I listened to today. I listened to that before I put the LOX album on.
Killer Mike might have dropped the verse of the year, though. What do you think about that verse?
I thought he already had verse of the year for Walking in the Snow. I could give you that.
I'm going to put this verse on the screen. I'm about to read through this. This is how it starts.
The whole verse? I'm about to say, because
not the whole thing. Killer Mike's is like, he said, just as soon as the sun rises, the night dies. You was building pyramids in African empires, where pale-skinned savages with straight hair and light eyes was still eating raw meat and barely could light fires. Before we sold cane, we civilized Spain. You are not the first black man in the Mediterranean. Shit, you lying to impress. You just insane. I look at you with disdain of the old shit stains. How you a product of God and you worship man. I was God in the flesh before I drove through the Musan. 5 keys of gold sitting on the neck of flames, surrounded by black women and West African kings. And I'm gonna go to Ghana and reclaim my name while these chump rappers is rapping about the shit they cop. Man, I cop my block and the shit don't stop. I'm officially the unofficial mayor of my city. I mean, I know that was a lot, but what? What?
He's the best lyricist in the South now. He's been that way for a while. So, not surprised. He's been the best lyricist in the South for a while now.
That was... I wasn't expecting him to come like that on that record because that record didn't have that kind of connotation to it.
You want to know what? I wasn't expecting him to get on a joint with Black Thought and Pusha T and come out with the best verse because if I'm picking him third.
You know what I was thinking, man?
If we're looking at the moment in time, and if we're looking at the world, it's like we said, this is his moment for what's going on, where hip hop is based, and what he's done. And hey, Mike, he's not lying either. He's copped a lot of real estate on the West Side. He's copped a lot of real estate on the West Side.
I feel like this verse was about what's going on with Nick Cannon. That's what I felt like. Did you feel like that?
Really?
I mean, I felt like this whole where pale-skinned savages with straight hair and light eyes was still eating raw meat and barely could light fires. He's talking about similar things to what got Nick Cannon in trouble as far as highlighting who were savages in a certain era and a certain time period and how they acted and reacted in certain regions.
I hadn't thought out on that deeper level just because Killer Mike has a way of just punching you and hitting you in the face with it. I didn't think about it on that level. I can see some of that. I don't think that you're reaching too far. Mike is a thinker and a dissector of the things that he sees and hears. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's just adding some level of historical context to it. And I think that he said what Nick just said, but added some historical context to it. And you know what? Raps have always had a way of being able to reach people that if you spoke it, it will come across different. But if you put it in a song, it's cool. Like, you can't just walk up to somebody in an interview or walk up to a woman and be like, girl, you look good. Won't you back that ass up? You's a fine motherfucker. Won't you back that ass up? But if you say it in a song, it's cool.
Right.
Ho, who is you playing with? Back that ass up.
Right. Yeah, I was just listening to how you were saying it, Mike. I'm like, man, that's very problematic. It's like, 20 years ago, look, Mike, 20 years ago when I was 19 and that record came out, it wasn't as problematic for me,
Right.
And that's what I mean of the growth of like men, of hip hop and stuff. It's like, like Rolling Stone might look at Nas as the same misogynistic type of guy that would say stuff when they were probably really following him in 94, 95, 96, 97, 98. It's like, no, he's not that guy anymore. You guys should have checked back in the last 2 decades. You suck at your job.
I just don't feel like Nas was even misogynistic then. Like, you remember, they used to have these conversations all the time. Like, nothing's really new under the sun. Like, you could go back on YouTube and Google these old conversations, or go to YouTube and find these old conversations from Teen Summit about how they felt like hip-hop was misogynistic or hip-hop did this and that. Nas was never in those discussions.
Okay, so in relationship, so you have to we're putting it on the scale as men. You have to put it on the scale that the victim would be on. So that would be women. So it's like, is he some of his counterparts? No, but should the misogyny register to a woman? Yes, we have to look at it through the eyes of a woman, not through our own eyes.
That's
so
true.
for us, not misogynistic, but we're men. For women, yes. Even though the scale of it might be a 2 or 3 or 4 as opposed to a 10, which quite frankly is another reason why a lot of women love Nas. It's not because they just find him attractive. They don't find him to be as misogynistic as these other motherfuckers.
Same thing with guys like Q-Tip, Pharrell. It's a different thing. Like, it's like when they're talking to you in a different way. And like you said, the misogyny is not there as much.
So here's where I know Danny Schwartz didn't listen to. The real misogynistic line on that album where he's talking about sleeping with some of the same women that Drake and Future has slept with. And that's the only part of the album I found to be misogynistic, Mike. All right.
Is that misogynistic or just never mind?
How about this, Mike? I'm a man, and so are you. And I'm just old enough to admit we're just not as emotionally as intelligent as women. And black love is tenuous. If the women are feeling some type of way about it, that's what it is.
Right. You're right.
Yeah.
Whether a person agrees with it or not, the person's feelings and how they take it are real. And you have to acknowledge that, and that's a reality.
Correct. So if the women are taking issue with it, then that's what it is. That's like Danny Schwartz trying to tell us that this album is a 2.5 out of 5 album. If we say, oh, well, Nas isn't misogynistic, it's like, why? Because we as men say so? Just like this white boy who's not a part of our culture said so about Nas. You get what I'm saying?
Right.
So we have to be fair on all ends when we're circulating. And I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about us as men.
No, I got
Black
you.
men.
Well, you know what? Before we round out this whole show or whatnot, man, let's talk about this Big Sean record. Big Sean got an album coming out. I think it's next Friday. Go ahead.
Can we finish up with the Thought record briefly, right quick? Because
Go ahead. I'm sorry. You're right.
No. Perfectly fine. I wanted to know your thoughts on the record. What did you think of the record? Because I love all 3 of these guys. I don't know how objective my take is.
It didn't really sound like I thought it was going to sound, which isn't a bad thing. It didn't sound cohesive. Pusha T did his thing.
You said it didn't, or
it did not sound cohesive. No, it sounded like they recorded their verses, in different spots, which they probably did. I mean, everybody's not getting together right now because of, the separation and, social distancing. But I don't know. I mean, for these different worlds to kind of collide on the record, it was kind of underwhelming in that way. I think for me, Killer Mike's verse added a little interesting edge to it, where it probably would have been a song that I listened to and kind of put down and kept it moving. And I love Pusha T. You know, me and you are Pusha T guys, and Black Thought is one of the most talented, if not the most talented lyricists to ever do it. But with all that being said, and Killer Mike coming with a very great verse, overshot what I thought he was gonna do on the song, it's kind of underwhelming. What are your thoughts?
A few things. I love all three of these guys.
Mm-hmm.
You're right about Black Thought. It's funny. I have never seen somebody evolve this late in their career and get elevated this late.
Right.
Because for me, he already was where he was for me for the most part, and not much has changed. But he has evolved into the guy where people do say, "Oh yeah, Thought's the best lyricist ever." We weren't hearing that when he was in his prime, or what we consider his prime, or the Roots prime.
Right.
And so he's great. I mean, Pusha's my favorite MC post, Prime Nas. And, Killer Mike is the best lyricist in the South to me.
Ooh.
I'm going to submit something to you. All three of these guys are top-notch lyricists, Mike.
Uh-huh.
And top-notch lyricists sometimes just struggle with the beat and the cohesion. And I think that's what happened on this record. I think in order for a record like this to sound like it's supposed to sound, with guys that are titans lyrically like they are, it needs to be a more selective beat selection, and they need to be in the room together. And I think you can hear lyricists sometimes don't pick the best beat because it's in the best track. I'm not saying that the track is trash. I'm just saying for how distinctively different all their styles are, the beat needs to be special so they can all get off on it. It's not that. They all get off on it, but it's like you said, it comes off as a little uneven, a little disjointed. And so everything that's not right about this record is why I still think George Bondo is my favorite rap song this year. It's the beat. It's the fact that the beat sounds good when all three MCs rap on it. It's the cohesion. It's the bars. It sounds beautiful. This record sounds great only in the sense that these guys are great. It's not beautiful.
Well, that's saying a lot.
Yeah. Like, they all sound great, but the record doesn't sound great. It's not a beautiful mesh or a moment. And I mean, if Pusha T and Black Thought and Killer Mike are going to get together, they need to make it more epic, too. Like, they need to know who they are and make it more epic.
I agree. And, and if you have the opportunity and the time to actually sit on a record, and I really feel like, let me put it out here like this. I really think these guys really brought their A game when it came to the verses. Nobody lacked in that way.
Yeah, the verses were great.
Yes, it was just, they didn't really put together the best song. And
so how about this? The Nas album's been out for a week. How you feel about that Full Circle record now? It sounds way more complete now, doesn't it?
It does. It sounds better,
Yeah. So I'm saying there's just levels of this. So right. I still think George Bondo's best rap song that I've heard this year. I like collaborative efforts, Mike. It's going to be rare that I say a solo record is the best rap song that I've heard this year. I'll give you two examples of when I felt that way about how few and far in between it is for me. If You Know, You Know by Pusha T, What You Know by T.I. Like, it has to be that kind of solo record for me not to pick a collaborative effort as the best song of the year. So understand, like, the level, like, George Bondo's, like, on that 10 level.
Right.
Like, that Full Circle's, like, on that 8 level. This Black Thought, Pusha T, Killer Mike joint's, like, a 5. Like, there's levels to, like, putting the record together properly. And so I'll give you an example. It's the nuances of stuff. When the Full Circle comes in, and Nas is talking, and he's like, how's that IE weather? You know what IE is, right, Mike?
IE weather.
IE is the Inland Empire out in Cali. That's where Hit
Mm-hmm.
Boy is from. It's the nuances of little things that you do, even when the record's not great, that bring it together and bring it a whole feel. So when he's talking at the beginning of the record, like how that IE weather, he's letting you know, oh, we on some Cali firm shit. Like we back out here with it. How that IE weather. I know that, Mike, because when I lived in Cali, I lived in the IE. And so it comes full circle, literally, with him giving a shout out like that, and then having Dre come on at the end of the record. When you get together and you're trying to make a moment, make a moment. They just got on the track and rap.
Yeah. I think a moment was missed. Even though I feel like Killer Mike really made the best of the moment, I still feel like collectively a moment was missed.
A moment was missed because they're probably not going to get together to do a track again. Like that's the best. I mean, they are the best in what they do right now. Like Mike is the best Southern lyricist. Push is the best dope boy in the game, and Black Thought is your legendary lyricist right now, like legendary lyricist.
And like you said, when you talk about people getting better at a later point in their career, all three of those guys have done that. And
his best solo record came 2 years ago.
Yeah,
I've been looking at him for 20 years. Yeah, Mike, like they could.
Killer Mike, in my opinion, Killer Mike is dropping some of the best verses he's dropped in his career. 20 years into his career.
Mike, I totally agree with you. Actually, when I was listening to this verse today, I was like, no, this might be his verse that he gets remembered for, Mike. Like, this might be his best verse. When I heard the verse, I just heard it one time. I was like, that might be his best verse. And he's been going ape shit the last 5-7 years.
Yeah, he went in on that Run the Jewels album this year.
He did.
Yeah.
The whole album.
Yeah.
Like I told you, he's lyricist of the year right now.
I think he might be.
I mean, it would be between him and Nas right now for me.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of which, I mean, Big Sean got an album coming up, right? And Big Sean's really trying to take it there lyrically. I think that on this song with this Nipsey record, really dope song. Nipsey was saying before he passed that he was, him and Big Sean were working on some things. So this was already in the pocket. And Big Sean has announced that his album is dropping, I think, next Friday. What's that? September 4th is next Friday. So, anyway, I think the Nipsey record is dope. I think that The Game, Rick Ross, and Big Sean now have all dropped really dope posthumous Nipsey Hussle records. Rest in peace to Nipsey.
Which one's the best?
What's that?
Which one's the best?
The Game's by far.
I was thinking Ross, but okay.
No, man. The Game shit was like, I don't know, man. It hits a different vein. And I didn't.
Right.
Yeah, and it's like, because he had the little talking part where.
The talking part is what draws you in, though. That's where it gets you.
The production's crazy. And I always love that sample, too. That Dozier sample.
Right.
Yeah. I loved it when Clips and Jeezy used it. But yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
No, it's been done well.
Yeah, and they did it very, very well.
I'm gonna listen to that record again. I haven't listened to it in a while. I didn't love that album, and I'm a big Game fan, but I'm gonna go listen to that again. But I just preferred the Ross record.
The Ross record was dope. No. Don't get it twisted. It's not a hands down.
Okay.
It's not a hands down.
I like that sample too.
Yeah, I like that sample too.
Right.
Yeah,
that's
Jigga used that too. Yeah.
That's sweet.
Yep, that's sweet.
Hey, Mike, that's one of Jay's best records.
What?
That might be the best record, American Gangster. Yeah.
I like Sweet a lot, but
I'm Hyman Roth. I made all my partners rich. I can't vouch for you if you ain't a part of this. So pardon me as I parlay my wrist while I parlay my chips. Like, stop that. Yeah. Shit.
Sweet. I think Jay said that's one of his favorite records on that album. I think he said that when that album was out.
You want to know what? When he was like, couple mistakes here and then, not always right, but I'm always real. That's how I sleep at night.
Oh, yeah. All right.
That's,
yeah.
When he's in that zone, that's how I like him. That's that politics as usual zone.
Conversational Jay is the best Jay.
It's the best Jay. Mm-hmm. How about this? Conversational Jay to me, is like one of the 2 or 3 best MCs ever. When he's conversational like that, I think that he's better than everybody except for Nas.
I honestly don't feel like there's anyone who can do that. I think DMX is close.
DMX is coming from a more soulful and gritty place. Jay is still cleverly writing it and formulating.
Jay is like he's talking to you. It's like
Mike, when I heard Friend or Foe for the first time, I had never heard anybody do that. It's like when you asked me when Reasonable Doubt came out, like I would have told you that was my favorite record just because I had never heard anybody do that. It's like, yo, he's talking to dude he got beef with about how the beef about to go down. Well, like, cool.
One of your favorite Jay records, and definitely one of my favorite Jay records, is Imaginary Player, and that is classic conversational Jay 101.
Yeah.
Imaginary. Yeah.
That sample's been utilized by some great guys.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, what do you feel about the Big Sean record?
I thought it was just all right. I wasn't overly impressed about anything. I think his commentary on his verse is what's garnering the attention. I'm not in love with the record. I'm not.
I think Big Sean
and I tend to like Sean. I like Sean more on collaborative efforts too. I think that's where I think he shines, like Mercy, Bless. So I like him when he's usually doing stuff like that. I just wasn't a big fan of this record, just to be honest with you. It was just all right to me. I'm like, oh, that's cool.
What do you think is Sean's best verse when it comes to like a feature? I think All Me for me. I think I got way too much of my mental. I learned from what I've been through. Been through what I'm finna do and still waking up like the rents too. I think.
So I guess that would be the thing with him. I don't have anything to offer you back to offset that. So you're probably right, because when you said that, that was the first thing I thought of too. And I'm like, well, do I got something to argue with Mike about that? And it's like, nah, not really.
I think that for whatever reason,
he got wittier verses, but I don't know better. No,
he's got a pen game, right? But for whatever reason, we don't view, and I say we as in hip hop collectively, view Big Sean as the lyricist that I feel like he works hard to be. I think people look at Crit as more of a lyricist than Sean, and Sean's been on bigger records. Sean has, honestly, verses that are staples.
He's had a more successful and versatile career. Go ahead and say it.
I wouldn't even just say it like that because there's a lot of politics that come with that, but I feel like...
What are the politics of that?
Well, the fact that I think he just basically got with the right company, and...
Yeah. So he networked. Let's not knock a man for networking. Sean networked his into what he...
I'm not knocking that. But what I'm saying is I think that their pen game between the two, it's not that huge of a margin, but people will mention Crit over Sean a lot of the times, but I'm just wondering why. You know what I mean? Because it's not like it's something that Sean didn't do. Like you said, he did everything right.
There's something to be said for standing next to giants all the time, and he may be a victim of standing next to too many giants. I mean, he's been doing joints with Kanye, Pusha T, 2 Chainz, the Control joint with Jay Electronica, Kendrick. He's literally been doing songs with heavyweights his entire career. And so maybe even though he networked the right way and made himself a name, he might have been better served waiting to build more of his rep up instead of stepping into the game like that. I mean, because he stepped into the game networking with these guys,
Right.
So it's what it is. But it's like also like when you're in the studio with these guys, it's like I always tell people, it's like, man, like his verse is catchy on Mercy, but everybody out-rapped him on Mercy. And I like his verse, but it's just like, know who you dealing with, dude. That's Pusha, that's Chainz, that's Kanye. Like, AA game, nigga. Not bring A game, A game. A plus.
I think he's brought his A game many a times and still been overlooked, too. That's the weird thing about Sean.
Because he's not like super lyrical like that, but he's dope. Like, like even on Mercy. white girls politic, and that's that Sarah Palin. Like, I still laugh at that shit.
I
that
think
shit's
his
funny.
voice.
That's a great line.
I think it's his voice that doesn't command that level of attention for some audiences to basically, I don't want to say take him serious, because I think he's taken serious, but I think some of his punchlines are kind of hit or miss sometimes, right? And I think that his voice kind of plays into that too, in a way where people don't look at him like the Kendricks and Coles, because him and Kendrick were having a back and forth, and, you know, what he said on the Nipsey song, the song with Nipsey, and it didn't seem like anybody was even paying it any attention.
That's very valid.
And it's crazy, like, for anybody who is, like, let's just say hypothetically, Pusha and Kendrick were having some sort of Cold War. That would be on the tip of everyone's tongue and talking about this and waiting to see when the big thing's gonna blow.
Mike, because that would be epic. That's why.
And see,
because
yeah,
Mike, I mean, two guys you just named, in my opinion, are the two best lyricists of the last decade. So they're literally the two best lyricists of the last decade, in my opinion. So that would be different. And also, too, it's the way they have performed on their one song together that lends itself to that.
That
like
record's great.
Nostalgia is great.
That
who has the
record
better
is
verse
great.
on Nostalgia?
That record
Who has
is
the
great.
better verse on Nostalgia?
Yo, that record's great.
Right. Mike, that record's great. And you want to know what I love? I love how they both were listening to and competing with each other.
Mm-hmm.
You can hear it.
Right.
You know, like, Pusha's like, this is Simon Says, Simon Red. He's letting you know, like, I'm talking like I'm Suge Knight. Kendrick's on